So ladies and gentlemen, to give us the keynote speech on impact of social media and metaverse, please welcome on screen our keynote speaker, Mr. Ravihans Wetakepotha. Mr. Wetakepotha, we are super excited to have you with us here, and we are excited to listen to what you've got to say for us. So over to you.
Hi guys, glad to be here, and thank you very much IEEE for inviting me for the TechX. Very fortunate to share some of my companies and our thoughts on emerging Web 3.0 technology and also Metaverse. And I hope you guys can see my screen. So I'll start with a brief introduction about what we're doing at Ogmo as well. We completely transitioned into becoming a Web 3.0 technology. We're, I think, one of the pioneers in Sri Lanka and also probably in Asia as well. And there are certain things that we learned in our Silicon Valley experiences, and I would like to share some of these things. And hopefully this session is informative and also sort of shows you some of the things that are happening around us. And I'm not going to bore you with a lot of details. I'm sure there are a lot of smart individuals, engineering background people in this session. So I'm not going to sugarcoat what is blockchain and what are NFTs, etc. If you have any questions, I'll take your questions at the Q&A session. So I'll move on to the nitty-gritty details. So internet, metaverse and Web3 is essentially an internet plus a social revolution. Why do I say that? Because with COVID taking the last 2 years in the entire world, we saw rapid adoption of digital media. For example, this session, if this happened prior to COVID, this would have been more like a physical session. 90% of the time we would be seeing each other in physical mediums, can interact with each other. But right now, this has become the new normal, where a speaker is coming on the screen and he's talking to you, lectures are coming on the screen. And all of these things are adding up to the time that we're spending in front of screens and mobile devices. So that's the key element here, that COVID and the pandemic situation for the last 2 years are rapidly increasing our digital consumption. How many minutes are we spending in front of screens and other digital media? By 2030, we expect Web 3.0 to depress annual offline consumption. That means real world, physical world around us, what we do in the physical world, by 7.3 trillion. That means all that money, buying stuff, interacting stuff is going into online medium. That is why all the engineering graduates who's listening to this session has to pay really crazy attention to the changes that's going to come. Because as Sri Lankans and Asians, we have missed so many evolutions and revolutions in technology cycles. But this is the time that we have to make sure that we don't miss this bus. That's why personally we decided to speak at this event, because we are building some exciting things at Ogmo as well. But just wanted to open your eyes, maybe. That's what the entire point of this. So like I mentioned, COVID-19 crisis has accelerated the shift from offline to online activities. And we estimate that on average in 2021 alone, internet users spend 38% of your life online and only 62% offline. But now in 2030, according to ARC Research, one of the leading disruptive technology research firms in the world, they are predicting this will flip. That means 52% of our time will be spent on digital devices and only 48 offline. That means when you're going out with your girlfriend or spending your time with your parents, in your lifetime, within 24 hours, you will spend less than 12 hours with your loved ones physically in things. You will be spending more and more time on digital mediums. And this is why also they are predicting that digital ownership will accelerate. That means transitioning of activity from physical things. That means maybe you're going to the gym, but maybe you will be wearing a VR headset, but you're doing the gym activities on a Peloton on a more a virtual medium, because digital goods and digital interactive media will consume your physical presence, because we only have 24 hours a day, right? That means there's a battle for your attention. This is the most key takeaway. When the attention is going, wherever people's attention are going, that's where people usually make money. That's what's happening here. So if you look at the right-hand side, Web 2.0, as you know, the siloed data sets. I mean, there are these companies like Facebook, TikTok, could be Snapchat, all these social media companies, Twitter, these things. But in Web3, there's an interesting paradigm shift, which I'll explain in a bit, that is changing, and you are getting ownership of your own data, your presence, etc., which I'll explain in a bit. So what's very important right now for us to do is lay a foundation for what is Metaverse and what is its potential. It all starts with internet. If you go back to these days, I'm sure you guys were little kids, but I remember this, like, these are like little phone devices, it'll make some weird sounds. You need to manually connect to internet. Everything that's going to happen to Metaverse or Web 3.0, we cannot forget what internet was. Internet once was just a new channel. People thought, you know what, radio, like just like radio was there, like TV was there, like newspapers are there, internet will become just another channel. Hey, it's an internet channel. That's what they thought. They thought this is just a website thing. But what actually happened? Internet is now facilitating all channels. This is a big realization that we all need to understand. Right now, we have online radio to online TV to Netflix to news, communication, e-commerce, everything is now internet. Internet is facilitating all channels. It didn't become a channel, it facilitates all the channels. Just like this revolution, just like unless you are hiding under a rock, you understand crypto is taking over the world. Cryptographic assets, crypto assets, public blockchains are likely to impact all asset classes, just like what internet did for all other media and all channels. Public blockchains will turn all assets into transactions on chain. That means your currencies, your equity, that means your shareholding of companies, stock markets, commodities like NFTs and movies and art, everything will be becoming blockchain native. This is a big change. So what's going to happen right now is essentially public blockchains. If you look at the left-hand side, like Visa, MasterCard, all these banks and everything, these are very centralized. They are manual, there are humans involved in it, and pretty much like there are centralized bodies are governing it. But public blockchains like Bitcoin or even other major blockchains are almost like distributed ledgers. They're distributed, transaction settlement and custodian, and all these things are decentralized. So these fundamental technology shift is empowering the Metaverse Web 3.0. Without talking about these technologies that are actually creating the environment, we can't talk about Metaverse. That's why, if you look at public blockchains, the left-hand side, you see the status quo infrastructure on your screen. There's a centralized, that means authorities are doing it. Even the Sri Lankan government, there's like Sri Lankan government, the president, and all those people. This decentralized people, there is a network of computer nodes are making decisions. Power is distributed. There's not single person is not running control. That means users have more control and it's permissionless. That means anyone could access all these public blockchain infrastructure. This is very powerful. So what's these public blockchains are creating? There's a money revolution that's happening right now. That means fiat currencies like banks. For example, you have People's Bank, Nation Trust Bank, and all these banks. Now, these things are getting replaced by decentralized exchanges and governance and funds, money, states. And then there are financial revolution, these DeFi and all these things happening. And in internet-wise, corporate-owned platforms will be replaced by interoperable user-owned web. That means Facebook, Snapchat, all these private companies are likely to be replaced. And this is going to be an interesting battle going forward. So this is another summary. We are going from decentralized trust on the left side to centralized trust. So the shift is happening. That's what's going to happen. So if we really look at what is the Metaverse thesis, if you build it from ground level up, this is a very famous example. You guys might be knowing that, because let's learn about what is Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. Because right now, everybody's talking about Web 3, but we have to understand the power shift that happened between Web 1 and Web 2.0. When I was young, we just had the internet. You would just dial it to a modem and you just log into a website, you can only read it. You can't input, you can type comments or nothing like that sort of was possible. That was Web 1. This is a Netscape Navigator. Most of you young people wouldn't even know, because Netscape was the most popular browser. And that's like the thing at that time. Now, Web 2.0, the most famous example is Facebook. Facebook brought down home pages, comments, like, and everything. That means you can interact with the Web 2.0 infrastructure. Right now, what's being proposed as Web 3.0, which is essentially going to lead us to this Metaverse concept, are things that are going to be not only like read, write, but you can also own them. This is the graph that shows that. You can read it and you can write on it, and you will also own these digitized assets as well. That means if you go to Facebook, right? Facebook can block you. Facebook can like temporarily ban you from Facebook. Twitter can ban you from everything. That means that centralized organization has the power. You don't control your account, even though you are there because your friends are there, your business is there. But the thing is, Facebook and Twitter and those platforms control your destiny. If they want to, Zuckerberg wakes up and thinks, you know, I want to ban Imesh's profile, boom, that's it. They can create some sort of a bogus reason and ban you. On Web 3.0, what's interesting is it provides a natural solution for this. Unless you are doing harmful, like you will pretty much own your digital identity, your data, and all these things. That means like the virtual economics, like it will be network driven, it will be decentralized. All these powerful concepts are going to help you to retain your digital identity and your assets. So if you look at the opportunity, this is what's really valuable for graduates, right? If you're going to work for a traditional Web 2.0 company, in Sri Lanka, there are thousands of like traditional companies who are working on Web 2.0. What's going to happen is you will run out of this traditional way of doing. Internet's going to be replaced by something new, guys. It will be replaced. Make no mistake. So what's going to happen is, if you look at Gen Z and all these people in the below, you can see literally all these people are consuming social media and all these other things in weird ways. Their habits are changing. How they're consuming data is changing. If you look at this graph, they're spending more time on virtual gaming worlds and things like this. That means even the social media is going to be changed into gaming and social platforms. This is what's going to happen. And this is happening right now. And then now we come to the most important topic, right? Why I have to talk about what is the metaverse, right? Metaverse is essentially a digital universe that moves beyond the internet now as we know it. Basically, it will be the replacement of the current web that we know and love, because it's a vision for the future state of the web that has potentially transformed our social interactions. Just like right now, I'm coming to you via video, my avatar will be speaking in a more virtual way or some sort of a form that is not even invented yet. Web is becoming much more interactive driven, and people want to touch, feel, and do something that cannot be done using the traditional 2.0 infrastructure. With 5G and all this high quality internet is taking over the world, Metaverse is still shaking shape, but right now you have something called the low fidelity metaverse. That means like all these 2D polygon-like things. But in the near future, you will see like real life, like real 3D, like Unreal Engine, like high fidelity metaverse, which I will talk in a bit. So essentially, the most important concept I could leave you here is there is no owner for the internet today. But nearly all of the leading internet companies rank among the 10 most valuable public companies on earth. Think about it. Nobody owns the internet, but the companies that are based on internet as a business model, they control the biggest, largest economies, biggest, largest money in the world. That means if you're working for one of these large companies, you are bigger than like 10 times bigger than even Sri Lanka, or like 100 times bigger than small country, because these companies are completely thriving on internet. So basically, value is being a key participant. It's not a driver. That means like Metaverse does indeed serve as a functional success to the web, but we don't know who will win the battle. Imagine the Metaverse internet becomes not a private owned thing. If let's say Zuckerberg succeeds, that means you need to always go to Zuckerberg's Metaverse, not something else. So this is where the interesting battle is now happening. There are people who are trying to create Zuckerberg's Metaverse versus open Metaverse. That means a truly open, decentralized Metaverse based on blockchain and other things. That's almost like a middle finger to Facebook. This is what's happening right now. And but the irony is, within the last 2 years, social platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, everything is exploding. While people are pushing for this narrative, like Metaverse should be open, Zuckerberg should not own this. People hate Facebook. But the thing is, Facebook and all these Web 2.0 social media platforms are rapidly gaining traction, because there's always going to be a gap between Web 2.0 adoption and also Metaverse, VR, AR, those platform adoption. This is why we think at Ogmo, games are going to become, since this topic of the day is about social media and Metaverse, We believe firmly that games and new blockchain games will create the fabric of these new metaverse social platforms. Because if you look at it, like Fortnite to battle royale games like Fortnite, they have hundreds of billions of dollars. People are playing these games. People are more and more getting into these immersive environments, which are virtual worlds, are on the rise. If you look at all these data that's happening for the last 8 to 12 months, this is going to be the future. This is Travis Scott, right? He performed inside Fortnite. That particular concert has been watched by more than crazy amount, a couple of billion views, and made like so much of millions of dollars within the 2 hours for Fortnite as a game. So if you look at the meta market dynamic, this is what's going to happen in the future. The Web 2.0 closed corporate metaverse like Facebook, it's like central owned by, controlled by Facebook, versus Web 3.0 open crypto metaverses. That's like Decentraland, Axie Infinity, all that. This is the battle. The battle is happening between these two entities. Large companies want to now try and pivot their business model into becoming Web 3.0 versus the companies that are actually creating ground level up Web 3.0 technologies. If you think about this, like if I give you an example, think of it like blockchains as lands. Imagine blockchains as lands, and imagine there are buildings in these lands. These are the projects on those blockchains. And then there are startups in those buildings that are renting space. So likewise, the blockchain has buildings which are like the structures that will host a bunch of startups. And these startups are creating these separate metaverse projects, etc. So if you look at it, like one of the main critical components of these Web 3.0 native or like ground level of new projects, not Facebook, they have projects like NFTs. They are trading digital assets to get fan following, and they are much more open. People can own assets inside these games, and they can demonstrate these digital assets to their friends as well. So this is creating a crazy digital economy, right? According to Matthew Ball, who coined the phrase metaverse, he believes all these aspects which you see in the left-hand corner, hardware, computing power, networking, virtual platforms, interchange tools, and payment services content, these are going to be the core 6 to 7 core drivers that's going to create. What Zuckerberg is trying to do is he's trying to create alternate things, piggyback on the existing users and create his own meta platform. But if you look at this opportunity again, developers, that's the blue dot. They have a huge purpose, and digital events, social commerce will occupy the middle bulk of it, because these digital spaces are going to be a massive potential. And if you look at this, this is the 14 trillion they're predicting that will go towards metaverse projects, everything. That means if you're starting a new startup, if you're thinking about startups, get into this trend now, guys, because as Sri Lankans, we have missed so many opportunities. But this is going to replace the existing internet. So why work for things that are old school? Maybe it's time to really look at hard on Web 2.0, not Web 2.0, maybe Web 3.0. Take a chance and go for it. Now I want to explain a little bit about, very fast, about the meta economy and Web 3.0 and some of the fundamentals, right? These are some of the crypto metaverse projects that are happening, especially on gaming. And these are the development studios. There are marketplaces like OpenSea. They are selling NFTs. What do you need to think about NFTs? If you don't know what's NFT, think of NFT as this. Think of this like, I have this object, right? I'll give you an example very clear. Let's say that you go and meet, let's say there's you go and meet Obama, for example, right? Barack Obama, who's like one of the US presidents. There's $100 note, and you get a signature from Obama saying that, we love TechX. I love TechX, keep up the good work, right? Now that $100 bill note is more worth than $100, right? Because Obama signed on it, even though it's $100 in circulation, that $100, since it's signed by Obama, that becomes a non-fungible. Oh, it's not the same like other $100 bills. It's very different now. It has unique attributes since it's signed by Obama. So that $100 bill note goes out of the circulation. That is a very crude example of what is NFTs. NFTs are blockchain verified assets that are very unique. They are not fungible. That means even though they could be the same, like $100 bill notes, like 1,000, but this signed note by Obama or a sports person is more valuable, more than $100 in worth. So just like that, all these platforms who are gaming are creating these very unique non-fungible assets inside games that you can own and can sell for millions of dollars. For example, if you go and join one of these new gaming projects, if this project goes up, if you own certain entities or a gun or a pistol or a cloth inside these Web 3.0 project, after 10 years time, maybe when you have kids and your grandchildren can sell those NFTs speculationally, like for a very high price because you own some of the very first assets on these brand new first games. Imagine having the first page on Facebook, something like that, right? It didn't have any value because it was not non-fungible. There was no blockchain, but now your ownership could be verified on blockchain. This is what's very powerful. And these are examples, like art galleries are coming into Metaverse, like Sotheby's, like one of the biggest art gallery owners. Business offices are coming, like Binance is like opening up their own office in Metaverse. Games and casinos are going to be on Metaverse. Advertising is going to be on Metaverse, because imagine, think about it. If people are going to spend 50% of the time inside virtual worlds, it's very evident that people will be like, going into these virtual spaces and then spending that time in those spaces. And that is where advertisers want to advertise. So that's what's going on. And the opportunities are, if you're creating avatars, this is a huge opportunity for people, right? Because avatars could be created and you can trade. These are examples like, people will buy those avatars. You can create your own avatars. NFTs are a big opportunity in the metaverse, and virtual programming, like, like virtual physical goods and payment networks. These are some of the Web 3.0 building blocks. Like payment networks will be coming into metaverse. Decentralized finance will be a big thing. That means there will be centralized exchanges, but these exchanges also will be like public governed. That means no one person will own it. So these are all crazy things that will be coming and part of these virtual and augmented reality worlds. Now I'm coming to the last part of this. There's a debate between the high fidelity and low fidelity. But you need to think about it. This is a project that's happening right now. This is a very brand new project, and one of my friends is handling this. This is called like Why the World. They're creating an entire high definition world on Unreal Engine. It's called Miami. It's based out of Miami. They have captured all the lands and building blocks using LiDAR technologies. They are creating a futuristic Miami. It's called Miami. And they have NFTs. You can buy lands and all these things. This is competing against Facebook's narrative. This is an open project. You can own these lands, etc. But this is high fidelity. What you need to think about is current metaverse projects like Decentraland, they are low fidelity. Imagine like the first example I told you. When the internet was a thing, you would log in through broadband, like dial, like modern based internet, right? You would just call it like dial the internet. Now, metaverse also at that stage, inception stage, the infant stages. So these metaverse projects right now happening, those are called low fidelity metaverses. These metaverse projects will become high fidelity in the 5 to 6 years down the line. That's why you need to start thinking about, are we going to create maybe a startup or a project, or am I going to get involved in a company that's going to be creating tools for high fidelity metaverses, social media, or am I going to focus on Web 2.0 existing, rideshare and all these companies? I think the opportunity is going to be in the future. I think it'll be very wise for people like you, smart people, to really focus on it. These are NFTs. They're going to create the experience of the Web 3.0. And we believe as Ogmo, and we believe NFTs will blur the line between consumption and investment. That means like you can own certain assets, you can digitally transform it. You don't have to pay lawyer fees. You don't have to do anything. It's your own property. And also imagine if you do an art, and that art is purchased for multiple generations, you will get a royalty every time it gets sold because it's on blockchain. And just like I mentioned, blockchain-based gaming can enable entertainment and monetization. This is going to be the main important thing. Social media are going to be changed and gamification will be a thing. Pay-to-play models are emerging. You should look into these things. And if Web3 proliferates, this is my last slide. I mean, monetization rate of online spending should approach that of offline by 2030. That means Web 3.0, if it succeeds, guys, there are trillions of dollars we as developers, as startup people, as engineers can make, because it will require a lot of online spending. That means online spending will be facilitated. That means payment gateways, payment companies, virtual real estate, NFTs, all these going to be very powerful companies going into the future. Last but not least, thanks to Web3, according to ARC Research, world's leading disruptive technology research company, it could approach $5.2 trillion by 2030. Web 3.0 economy alone. That is 10x than the Web 3.0 current companies. So if you're thinking about joining a typical company right now working on old technologies, this is going to be a wake-up call for you, because you need to think about next 5 to 6 years, what are the things going to change in the society? Think about this. In Sri Lanka, we had something called budget taxi, right? Remember that we had these three-wheel guys on the car parks and etc. Then we had this number that budget taxi, fare taxi, we could call those guys. Get the taxi, three-wheeler. Then Pick Me came and disrupted everything. Now there's Pick Me, there's Uber, right? That's going to be, now we don't even remember the fare taxi or budget taxi. This is going to be 10 to 100x massive change, probably 1000x. This is probably going to change the entire game for us as human beings, as humanity. So my plea to you, everybody, is look into what is Metaverse, understand it's not just like some virtual reality world. Right now, we are in the Metaverse. We are spending more and more time. Right now, you're looking at me through a Metaverse conduit. This is the precursor to Metaverse, but in the future, we're going to be facing a lot of online time and more time virtually. So that's my speech, and I welcome any questions that you might have. Happy to answer if possible. Thank you. There's a question from the audience. How can we create NFTs? I would encourage you to look into Solidity programming and search YouTube for generative NFTs. There are various types of NFTs. At Ogmo, we produce something called augmented reality NFTs. We are very passionate about creating augmented reality NFTs. So essentially, you can create NFTs. Right now, there are a couple of, the question should be rephrased like this. What type of NFTs you want to create? If you want to create like a collection of like artworks, the CryptoPunks and Bored Apes, look into these things. You can Google it, guys. You can learn Solidity programming and quickly just watch a YouTube video about how to create generative NFTs. That's how you should search. And then you can create a collection of NFTs. And then the step number 2 is then create a community. Start a Discord channel, create community, and then talk to the community about the rareness of these NFTs that you created. For example, currently a company called Prodigy Interactive is working on a Sura Asura collection that's based on ancient Ramayana epic, etc. So those NFTs could be sold for Indian audiences for one of the companies that I'm invested in. For example, like Ogmo, at Ogmo, we are backing one of the cricket projects. They're capturing authentic cricket memorabilia and then capturing that to augmented reality. So if you have something like that, then you can create as this thing, and then you can mint those NFTs into a blockchain on Avalanche or Ethereum or Solana, and simply just go to YouTube and search generative NFTs. The knowledge is out there, and this is a separate lecture altogether, and we're happy to have another session for you. But the simple answer is search generative NFTs and learn about how do you program NFTs, etc. The second question, what about starting point of Web 3.0 Metaverse? What are the current technologies that can be augmented to gain required knowledge? Yeah, that's a great question. I would request you to go and search Matthew Ball. Matthew Ball is one of the leading architects or thinkers on the Metaverse. And basically, you can think of the example that I'm thinking. If you are trying to create a cryptographic project that's going to transition into Metaverse, for example, let's say you want to create a game, a blockchain game that will have some sort of a augmented reality or virtual reality component, then I would advise you to go and check out Solana blockchain and Avalanche blockchain, and then search and find out information. I can probably send you guys an email or send separately for the event organizing team about some resources. Then you can learn how to create a Solana or AVAX game. Why am I pushing Solana or AVAX? One of the biggest issues in Ethereum, there's something called gas fees. That means Ethereum blockchain is very congested. There are a lot of people trying to use Ethereum. Ethereum is old school. That's why they're working on something called Ethereum 2.0. So the issue is like, I would encourage you to look into blockchains like Solana and Avalanche, where the cost of doing these projects are very low. That means your audience, when you have these projects, quickly they can pay and get these without paying hundreds of dollars. That eliminates friction points. So second question, what about starting point of Web 3.0 is I would look into learn Rust programming, Solidity programming, and then learn about blockchains, and then learn about how to code NFT projects. That's a short answer, I'm sorry. How does AI and data science involve in Metaverse? It is why to going back into ML data science. Look, I think if you think about AI and data science, I think it's like water. You know, like you could be working on a Metaverse project or NFT project or any sort of a Web 3.0 technology. AI and data science will be at the backbone, and that these are fundamental stacks that you have to know. What you need to think about is you need to specifically think about, am I going to be a data science engineer that's going to be work on specifically decentralized finance or decentralized social networks or creating social graphs or creating hypergraphs that collects data that you can then create a solution for these projects. For example, look into blockchains like Polkadot. They are creating something called Internet of Blockchains. These are some of these things. So the short answer for that AI metaverse question is that if you're working on something, it's very important to think at what level do I like to work? Do I want to work on a blockchain project? That means building the land where startups or buildings will be built. If you're building a land, then you need to learn like C++, very low level languages, so you can build a blockchain. If you have like crazy ideas to like, I want to build a blockchain on my own. If you're building something separate, let's say, for example, a building on the land is a blockchain. If you're creating a building, those are projects. Those are like interesting projects. Like these are decentralized exchanges, social networks on blockchain. For that, all these like AI, ML, data science, these things for like Hadoop and all these things come into play. But remember, it's not about now getting private data or collecting private data. It's about how do I incentivize decentralized group of people using my data knowledge. That's the short answer. I hope the session is published on YouTube. I'm not very sure. How does AI and data science? I think I've asked that, going to answer that question shortly as possible. What could be the effect on Web 3.0 and NFTs? There will be a crash on Ethereum. That's a great question. I have a lot of investment on Ethereum myself. If you really look at closely, NFTs are not just on Ethereum. Currently, Ethereum is the de facto blockchain that a lot of projects are built on. But if you pay attention to what I was telling you, Solana and AVAX and Phantom, there are a lot of projects, NFT projects are happening. So even NFT in Ethereum would be, let's say, if there's a huge crash of Ethereum and OpenSea goes down, there are other projects that are happening on other blockchains. If you go to CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap and look at the 5 blockchain projects, other projects are catching up to Ethereum. So don't worry. I think other blockchain projects are going to catch up, but it's very important to learn Solidity and Rust programming. Look into those things. If you want to get into Metaverse, Web 3.0, anything to do with crypto, Rust and Solidity are important. What is blockchain? Blockchain is essentially it's a decentralized network of computers, and it's a network, and the technology is very distributed. It's the next iteration of the distributed ledger. That's a short answer. I think I explained in the presentation. I saw more people came about Microsoft Mesh. Why is that? Is it really part of the metaverse? I'm not that familiar with Microsoft Mesh, but I think in my presentation, I told you guys, private companies are trying to now get us into their projects. Microsoft is trying to do something else. Facebook is trying to do something else. What's very interesting, like Microsoft owns 18% of Facebook as well. Then Google is also trying to support open economics, because everybody's speculating. Because a lot of private companies do not know what's going to happen in the future. While private companies like big giants like Microsoft, Facebook, a lot of these Google, these projects are happening, there are independent companies. Just like Facebook came when Microsoft was a thing, maybe a new company, new social network would emerge and replace Facebook, Snapchat, those things. Who knows? So next 10 years is going to be very, very interesting. Same one to say, is it too late to get involved in NFT? How long NFTs? How long NFTs are there? I think it's going to be, the answer to that question is going to be a while. I think NFTs are here. It's a new asset class. It's not too late, but it's very important if you're doing a project on NFTs, make sure the gas fees are low. Because Ethereum, let's say you're buying something for $20 worth, And also understand this, guys. NFTs can be bought by Australians, Americans. You can be creating a collection that is loved by anybody. This is the new world dimension. You can be a Sri Lankan, you can have brown skin, white skin, nobody cares. If the art is cool, if the NFT looks rare, people will be really, will buy your stuff. But make sure the gas fees are low. Just look into what is gas fees, you will understand. Supported by the HoloLens 2 technology, there are in a project of creating workspaces in the metaverse. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not that familiar with Microsoft Mesh, but Microsoft is an interesting company under Satya Nadella. I will support everybody, but my bet is Open Metaverse. I'm involved in a project with Open Metaverse. We are working very closely with AVAX, Avalanche, and Solana as Ogmo. So more power to Microsoft. I hope they win. There are some disadvantages in Web 3.0 related. So what do your comments on those disadvantages in the Web 3.0? These those affect the growth of Web 3.0? If you can let me know what are the disadvantages. Of course, there are many, but if you can be specific, I can let you know about what do I think about those things. Unfortunately, I can't address to this because if you mention disadvantages, I can go over it. I think my time is up as well. So I have to go. I mean, yeah, so high power consumption, gas fees, all these are issues. So just look into Solana and AVAX and other low gas fees, things like this. I think power consumption wise, I must address this. Is something to do with like blockchain and cryptography and power consumption. I can debate about this. I think there are so many other things that consumes power, but I think the blockchain and the transparency and some of the cutting middlemen on all our economic engagements, the power consumption on the long run could be even like actually beneficial for us because like blockchains remove a lot of friction. There's a lot of middlemen will be removed and more power to you. You can directly deal with buyers, sellers because blockchain is a single truth. I think I have to go right now. Thank you very much, guys. Hope this is like informative and this is just a primer and I'm available on our email address and feel free to talk. And TechX, thank you for organizing this event. We are very proud to be part of this and hope this was great. Thank you.